Hello and welcome to today's MM+M webinar brought to you by LiveWorld. Today's webinar is From Risk to ROI, How Strategic Moderation Drives Pharma Marketing Results. Today we'll explore how content moderation goes far beyond brand protection and can fuel content strategy, drive authentic engagement, and deliver real marketing ROI. You'll learn how to harness user-generated content, turn real conversations into creative ones, and support customer journeys with strategic moderation insights. Now, before I introduce our speakers today, we've got a quick poll question for you to see, are you using your content moderation as a gotta-have or defensive tool, or are you using it to amplify your marketing efforts? Yes, no, or maybe. All right, we're going to leave this up, and here we go. The one person response says, no, you're not using it for these. So we'll dive into that. But first, our speakers here today, we have Jason Liebowitz, the VP of Moderation Business at LiveWorld. He is Vice President of Sales, a social-first digital agency at LiveWorld. He's specializing in transforming customer relationships through social media engagement and compliance solutions. Also here today is Pamela Flores, the Account Director at LiveWorld. She's a seasoned communications professional with over 25 years of experience spanning social media, B2B, public relations, and marketing communications. Jason and Pamela, take it away.
Thank you, Jameson. So hello, everyone. Before we go in, just a few words about LiveWorld. We've been doing this for 29 years, providing social media solutions across an array of industries, but we've got a healthcare and pharma practice that we've had for probably over a decade at this point. And really what we're trying to do is get to the heart of enabling healthcare and regulated companies to succeed in social media. We currently manage close to 400 pharma-owned social media properties, delivering about 90,000 hours of these services each year, and our solutions are available in 70 country language combinations. Where we really want to focus today is on how effective content moderation is going to provide more than brand and regulatory protection. So, we all use it if we have any own social media properties, or if we even have some programs in which we're using influencers. The difference is, and really what we want to emphasize here, is that it's more than a box to check off to satisfy the needs of pharmacovigilance or MedReg. And really what we want to do is dive in on how this process should also be used, not as a defensive play, but as a way of informing marketing and business decisions. So, let's really get into, if we're talking about social media, really, what are we doing? We're talking about engaging, we're talking about sharing, we're talking about, unlocking social to its greatest potential. And in order to unlock social, you really need to unlock comments. There are pharma companies that are, that have comments on, and there are certain pharma companies where, the whole concept of having comments on is really taboo to even discuss in the hallways. So let's talk about the value of comments. So really, what does it come down to? Well, peer recommendations have more credibility. We know that from personal experiences. We know that anecdotally through client experiences, and there's plenty of data to back it up as well. People believe and trust each other more than they believe marketers and brands. What else does it do? Well, the value of comments. It's going to answer questions when they're top of mind, not necessarily, sending someone through a contact center, not necessarily sending someone to their physician to remind them or to have them answer questions when they're in office. The power of comments is to make sure that people are attended to really at the speed of social, really, when something is top of mind for them. What do comments also do? Well, they provide insights for new content, for keywords, for SEO, for marketing strategies. Really, if you're not going to pay attention to what people are saying, you're not really getting the value that you can be. So there are value in comments for insights. It informs your content strategy. I mean, mostly folks believe that comments are generated from what content is posted, but that should be seen as the starter, as the catalyst. Once that's in place, you pay attention to the comments because that's going to inform future success. What are we trying to do in social media? We're trying to build community and awareness. Don't really need to go much deeper on that. And lastly, comments and what is said, how it is said, where it is said is going to drive algorithmic performance as well. So there's value there. So getting to these two key points, peer advocacy is going to drive success. So this is according to Adweek. 76% of folks are more likely to trust content shared by individuals, peers, other folks within communities than they are based on content shared by brands. So that's more than 3/4 of the folks. And then 80% of the folks, and this is done through one of our own case studies, 80% are showing that click-through rates improve by increments of 4x. So, it's one thing to have your own content. It's another thing to rely on the content of those within your community. So understanding that in order to do this correctly, you need to lay a foundation. You need to lay a foundation for MedReg legal. You need to lay a foundation for pharmacovigilance. You need to lay in a foundation that is guideline and process. So you want to customize it by your platform. One platform does not suit all. You want to customize it by brand. You want to make sure that you've got key members involved in this. So you've got the regulatory folks, you've got your COE, you've got your marketing, you've got your brand. You want to have alignment on what the standards need to be in terms of implementation. Also, it's great to decide what are your KPI, what are the outcomes. So, you're going to define those along the way. The outlines of when and how you engage. What insights are you looking to derive from your UGC? And most importantly, what's working? What's working on the DTC side? What's working on the HCP side? You need that feedback. And of course, that's where you're going to get it, is through comments and social media. So in order to do this, we understand you need to lay in the foundation. And this is really the reason why we're here today. Content moderation is more than a box to check off. It's more than it's more than satisfying the regulatory folks. It's for you to get something out of the process as well. So we look at content moderation really being at the heart of all your social media programs. So if you follow this from a circulatory system perspective, on the left side you have content coming in, whether it's coming in through social comments and UGC, whether it's coming in through influencer content. The left side of the heart is really where the gotta-dos are going to be taken care of. Crisis detection, compliance aspects, triage, escalation. That's done on the left-hand side. And the folks who are the recipients there are PV and MedReg to make sure that your regulatory reporting is in shape, and you're doing all the things that you need to do the right way. But here's where the value really comes to play, and we're gonna focus on the right side of the heart. The engagement and support and the tagging and insights is going to come from an effective, proactive, and frankly, more than just checking off the box for words in AE and PQC. It's going to come from actually evaluating what is being said and how you can engage, if you can engage, and getting your insights out of it. And what's that going to generate? It's going to improve your reputation. It's going to improve the experience, and there are going to be business ROI and KPI outcomes that come out of that as well. So this is where we'll provide some case studies. So this is where I turn it over to Pam. So Pam, please take it away.
Thanks so much, Jason. Appreciate the intro. And like he mentioned, I have the fun part of this. It was a great setup, but I get to share a few stories from our moderation work. Real moments where something we spotted in the comments helped our clients rethink how they connect with their audiences. Some resulted in bigger program changes than others, but they are all great example of how valuable the conversations that you see on social can be and how important it is to pay attention to what's being said, because it really can drive strategy and new ideas. So the first example I'm going to share is a great example of how community moderation reveals gaps and opportunities. While managing both branded and unbranded channels for a liver disease community, the LiveWorld team noticed two big things among the people commenting: a hunger for education and a growing spread of misinformation. Now, this client knew that this was something they wanted to address, but they were very worried about doing something like this in a public forum. So LiveWorld recommended a bold but very safe solution. We've worked with them to launch a private Facebook group where the brand could test deeper engagement and misinformation correction strategies. We worked together with them to develop a detailed process to really define what we would and what we wouldn't correct, and created an expanded response library. We also worked to create a fast track approval process for new responses, as we knew that once we started digging into the correction strategy that we were about to undertake, more questions would come up, and we knew that we needed a way to quickly come together on how to respond and get approval. The program is still very new, but the early results are promising. The community is currently engaging more meaningfully. Misinformation is being addressed with care, and the brand is now seen as more trustworthy and supportive. And I forgot to mention, if you have any questions as I work through the case studies, feel free to throw them in the chat and we can go back to them in the Q&A portion of the webinar. The next example I'm going to share is one that took place at the height of the pandemic when uncertainty was at a very high level. We were working at with a healthcare brand and brought to them the fact that, working with them, we all knew that people were anxious and desperate for reliable information, especially when the COVID vaccine became available. Our team noticed intense social chatter from people trying to get vaccine appointments for their loved ones that were at risk. And we knew we needed to do something to try and help, and social was a great forum for that. We started by helping people one by one find appointments in their local area, but it became quickly clear to us that we needed to scale. So we worked with this healthcare client to build a system to share daily lists of locations with vaccine availability, and we leveraged social media and targeting to get it out in the right areas. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. One person that we helped commented on social, and I'll quote, "Crazy how reaching out through social media is the most efficient way to get things done." That truly is the power of responsive and empathetic engagement. It was a wonderful way to help this audience at a time when they were very, very desperate for information. Our next example shows how even behind the scenes feedback can lead to real improvements. While moderating a pharma brand's social channels, our team was bound to a very strict pre-approved response library with absolutely no ability to customize the responses. And this caused some problems for our team. We noticed a couple of important trends. Users were really being met with very generic responses that didn't fit the tone or context of their posts. So we worked with the client and pushed for more customized options in our response library, like gender neutral pronouns and the ability to skip phrases like talk to your doctor when the user had already mentioned that they had. Remember, previously we couldn't even edit out the smallest part, so it looked tone deaf when we used those responses. And we also worked with them to come up with a more thoughtful way to express empathy when appropriate. The result was better user experiences, fewer complaints, and a more authentic tone that aligned better with the community. So even small changes in social moderation can lead to big improvements for how the brand is perceived and the audience is communicated to. Next up is some work that came from another major health brand that we were working with, and it has to do with negativity. Our standard approach with this for several years had been to hide or delete negative comments, which was just what we did. It's what they mandated and how they like to approach it. But a growing wave of coordinated negativity made this strategy really backfire. Users began to notice this censorship and called it out, really worsening the brand's reputation and causing even more negativity on the pages. We saw the pattern and worked closely with the client to evolve the policy. Instead of hiding every negative comment, we developed a new framework to allow constructive criticism to remain, respond where possible, and avoid inflaming conflict. Now, there was still some guidelines to be attended to. Comments were still being hidden, but we slowly rolled this out and allowed some to remain on the page. It was a big change, and it took some time and trust building, both on LiveWorld side, really educating our agents and getting them used to the new process, and on the client with their risk appetite. But in the end, the brand saw less overall negativity and more respect from their audience. In this case, transparently truly won. My final case study that I'm going to share harkens back to something Jason said a little bit earlier in the webinar, that moderation isn't just about protecting the brand. It can be so much more. And in this case, it really was a discovery tool. Back to the liver disease community that we do some work with, we saw repeated questions in the comments over time. Things like, what causes this disease? What are the symptoms? Who is at risk? And we had made note of that over time, that this was literally what the community was asking about. However, their existing content, that the creative that they were putting up in the posts that they were pushing out, mostly focused on seminars and informational sessions coming down the pike. And they did have some patient stories, but none of those creative posts were getting at the heart of what people were asking about. They weren't answering these questions in any way. So we worked with the client to shift their content and creative strategy. We worked with them to create more educational posts that aligned with what folks that are interested in this topic really wanted to know, while still leveraging the storytelling that really humanized their message. The key takeaway here: sometimes your next creative strategy starts in your comment section. So those are the 5 examples that I have to share today. Jason, I'll kick it back over to you to wrap it up, and then we can launch our Q&A.
Thank you. So 4 takeaways. Moving beyond brand protection and using content moderation effectively can actually fuel smarter marketing. Turning UGC into authentic, high-performing content is a byproduct of effective content moderation. And so are insights. Those insights can come in any set of ways, but what they can do is they can help creative, and most importantly, they're going to inform patient journey strategies. So many patient journey programs and maps are actually written way before social media is even like a gleam in the eye of a marketer. But once you have your social media programs going, this is where you can get the reality check as to where things are actually occurring properly and need correction along your patient journey mapping. And finally, you can drive real-world impact with stronger engagement. And I know engagement is a tough thing to do, but it's worth it, and it can be achieved, and it will provide better outcomes. So with that, Jameson, I guess it's time for some Q&A.
Yeah, I've got a few questions here for you. First of all, thank you for that great presentation, really informative. Reminder to the audience, if you still have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll get to them. But my first question for the two of you is what are the biggest obstacles you face when using social media as a support tool?
Well, the obstacles are really internal, in that you need to have support and buy-in across the organization to really open up social media to be a support tool. Once you get that alignment, there are plenty of patient support programs that actually are pretty darn successful, and we've managed a few using social media, because what it's doing is it's putting the process in patient time rather than in contact center time or HCP time. And I guess the hardest thing that someone wants to deal with when they are asking a question in social media is when they receive a response that says, "That's a great question. Please call our contact center." That's really not delivering on the promise of why you've actually launched in social media. And it's not really delivering on the expectation that is being presented by the person who's asking.
All right. And my next question for you is, are you using your current process of content review for anything more than regulatory reporting?
I want to make sure I'm understanding that, because everything we've pretty much talked about is how to use it for more than regulatory reporting. So just want to make sure I didn't miss something in the question.
No, yeah. Well, why don't we just move on to the next one? Because, I think you spent the entire webinar answering that second one. And you've sort of started to explain this one in your first response here, but when it comes to turning your comments on, where in your organization is often the most friction?
It's on the regulatory side, right? It's in MedReg legal. It's in pharmacovigilance. I mean, the immediate thing that a PV person is going to say is, okay, now you're opening me up for more paperwork and more reporting. And is that worth, unfortunately, the risk? Because in the world of PV, all it usually takes is one AE to make their lives a little bit more difficult. So it's really on it's on the internal side, and then so you've got the PV side when it comes to reporting. And frankly, you've got the MedReg legal side when it comes to, are you going to open up and are you going to provide responses? Because it's going to require additional time. It's going to require additional review, and it's going to, frankly, require a trust in the process. And as much as MedReg legal folks would like to believe in the process, it's their job to always have a little bit of doubt.
All right, perfect. Well, that is all the questions we have here today. Thank you so much, Jason and Pamela, for your time from LiveWorld. Unlocking social during this MM+M webcast. Please make sure you check out their different socials. And if you want to get in touch with Jason directly, his email is on this last slide here, jason@liveworld.com. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here today, and I hope you have a great Monday.